What is up, everybody? This is General Spear here. Welcome to a brand new episode here on the channel involving the next video and the official first video of my build of ARC Trooper Havoc. Here today, obviously, as you can tell from the video title as well as the thumbnail below, we are going to be working on prep work for the helmet. And I got the bucket right here, all fine and dandy. This was part of a kit that came with the bucket itself, the visor, the rangefinder as well, and also a piece of mesh that goes with a mouth guard basically as well. But basically this episode, what we're going to be doing is prep work to be able to paint and also finish off the helmet later, because there is a little bit of body work that we need to do. Just to show you the helmet again, as you can see, this is a resin cast mold of the ARC Trooper animated style helmet, and this is from Dave's Armory. The guys over down in Dave's Armory down in Southern California, did an amazing job on this stuff. And generally this takes a few days of work to do, but it's really, really fantastic. It's really, really great quality. The likeness of the ARC Trooper is very, it's very fantastic. As you can see, what I've already done is I've done a little bit of prep work, and you'll actually need to do this if you get any kind of casted helmet of whatever kind. It's always good to wipe it down with a damp washcloth or paper towel. Doesn't really matter, because there is going to be some residue on the surface that you're going to want to clean up before you start any kind of prep work whatsoever. The next bit after that, once you've done that, and just let it either let it dry or dry it off with another paper towel that's dry, of course. But yeah, and then the next bit that you want to go through is underneath some pretty high light. You're going to want to go over the helmet and mark where we need to do, where one needs to sand and to fill and to basically make the helmet look as if it's one solid piece. You might not be able to tell this with the camera, but there is a line that goes pretty much down the center of the helmet itself, up and over basically, that we're going to need to basically put filler on and then sand that down so it's all one smooth surface. It's going to look a little weird with all the patches and everything, but that's part of what this calls for. And then the other part of the video that we're going to be looking at too, once we deal with all this, the filling, is even before we get to sanding, we're going to actually cut out the visor here, or the slot here for the visor basically, and then also these little recessed divots right in the helmets themselves, or right in the helmet itself, and that's going to be with a power tool, probably more than likely a Dremel. And then we're going to file those areas down, because with this stuff, it's a whole lot easier to take stuff off than it is to add stuff. So we're going to start out by dremeling very, very carefully with that. And then we'll go into the filing and the sanding and all of that all over the helmet. And then after all that, we're pretty much going to put on a coat or a few coats of primer, just to make sure that it's ready for painting. And should be pretty fantastic. And then we're going to do, I think that's going to be all for this particular video of what we're going to do with that. I think I'll save painting and then the various accessories for the next video. Something that we will go over, and I want to show you guys real quick. A, here's the visor. And B, if I can find it, there it is. This is the pack of the rangefinder kit, as well as some extra greeblies that came with the helmet. And the other thing that I noticed with this is there's also, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there is a line. I'm just looking at my recording software here. There's a line right there that you're able to see. That too goes all the way around the top portion of the rangefinder itself, and also needs to be filled and sanded and everything. But this is significantly easier than this guy over here, so that's going to be a thing. Let me just go through here and just make sure. Just going through all my parts. Got the rod for the rangefinder itself that goes up in it. I have to actually contact the guys over at Dave's Armory as far as how exactly to install that rod, because I've seen multiple ways, but it's important to, you know, kind of get that information. Here's another bit for the rangefinder. I think this is another bit as well. And then there are two bits right here. These guys. And these guys fit inside the helmet, like they're right there, basically. They get glued in there. But that will be later in the video. Once we paint all these up, then we can glue those in there, because these are like painted by themselves separately, as well as the helmet. So it's best to paint everything up and then glue and do whatever modification work. Like, for example, these guys, gluing those into place after it's all painted. So those guys will be last, but this is going to be quite a project. I'm really excited to get started. As you saw, I've already done the first two steps, basically, of, you know, damping it or wetting it down and damping, wiping off all of the excess residue and everything, marking out where the stuff is, and yeah, that's pretty much going to be the intro there. I'm going to flash a photo in real quick before we get started. This is a photo of all the different materials and resources that I'm going to be using for this video, as well as roughly how much time to expect. The material that we're going to be working with as far as the filler goes, it's not Bondo, it's actually called epoxy clay. That stuff has a much longer drying time than Bondo does, but the two pros to it is that you're able to have a much longer work time, and you're also able to sand it much easier. So that's going to be the process there. We're going to get started in just a moment. Here's the photo of the things. Okay, so the first bit that we're going to be doing in this build for Havoc, as far as the helmet goes and as far as the bodywork, is we're going to go ahead and take these two parts of the epoxy clay mix. We're basically just rubbing them together and we're mixing them up. They come in two different colors, one in white, one in black, or at least that's the base color option. As far as the general consistency goes that you need to, you know, rub these things, or, you know, combine these two parts together, you want to make sure that they actually come out to be a pretty unison color. If there's any, you know, discoloration, like if there's multiple swirls or anything like that within the clay itself, it's not gonna, you know, apply very well. The other thing you need to realize is that, you know, this is clay on a very smooth surface, so it's going to take some effort to press it down into the surface itself. As you can see, I'm rolling out little quantities, basically, because you know, a little of this stuff goes a pretty long way in this entire process. I'm actually not even going to use all of the clay that I have before me. But it's just working out and working into the details and everything. So yeah, just basically getting the process right there where it's all unison color, kind of this very light gray, is the desired outcome of that. As you can see here, I'm kind of going into some of the areas where there's that seam that runs up, you know, runs up the center of the helmet itself. I will let people know that I did end up putting a lot more on than what should be possible. Realistically, you can do the same process with the Bondo. I just like going a little bit slower for these first few stages, because of the fact that, you know, Bondo, it's a very, you know, quick and set drying process, not able to get into the grooves and whatnot as quickly, or as quickly, basically. So yeah, that's the process there. And this is pretty much just rinse and repeat. It's just going over all the grooves and everything. It's making sure that you have all the surfaces covered and, you know, smoothed out as much as possible, so that way it makes sanding a heck of a lot easier in the long run. The next bit after this segment here is going to be a series of photos of me explaining the entirety of the next process. So we're going to go into that right now. Okay, so after this process, I'm pretty much just going over the entirety of the surface with Kawiki Seal, just to fill in some of the grooves and gaps. And that's before all the dremeling and sanding and everything. In this case, I'm drilling out with some drill bits around the edges of the visor, as well as in the mouth guards here. This helps making dremeling much, much easier. And then, of course, here is another close-up of the process there. I find out later, after the dremeling process, that it's actually significantly easier to drill smaller holes around the edges of the visor itself. I think the next photo we have coming up here, yeah, there it is. So it's where I'm kind of beginning to show that process. Some of these photos are a little out of order, but that's okay. As you can see, kind of the before and after of the Dremel bits there. It's looking pretty good. And the drill bits as well. Here's another view of that. As you can see the small drill bits around the entirety of the process there. And then we have, of course, the cleaned up version. Now, I want to take a second to say that using rasps and files for the final detailing of this, as opposed to using a Dremel, is going to be your best go-to, because you risk taking off too much material if you go a Dremel all the way. After sanding, pretty profusely and getting it to the point where it actually looks pretty clean, you can hit it with a coat of primer, and that will kind of get it a uniform color all the way around, as well as show some of the details in which that are going to be that you need to go over with, say, like Bondo and some sandpaper, which I'm going to do post this video, basically. So you're not going to see it on camera, but you are going to see it eventually in the final process. And that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. We have pretty much the setup here of the helmet, all painted out and everything. There is still more work to do on this. There's going to be some Bondo work on the front panels here, the top here, just basically everything there. And then there's sanding to make sure it's all smoothed out. In the next episode, we're going to go over, or the next helmet episode, whenever that is, basically, we're going to be working more on kind of the accessorizing, the paint job, so on and so forth. So I'm really excited to get started more on that. Next episode is really exciting. We're going to be getting more into the build of the armor. We're going to be focusing on getting the hand plates, the forearm guards, and the biceps going. So getting more into the build. After that, probably move on into the legs, depending on how it goes. But yeah, should be exciting. Thank you so much for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all learned something today for the helmet. Feel free to Hulk smash that like button. Comment in the comment section below if you're new. Do not forget to subscribe. And as always, may the force be ever in your favor.